Hello and welcome to another episode of the BashTalk podcast. Today I've got a very special guest, none other than Mr. Ash himself. Ash is a local of Nelson who specialises in hot rods and American machinery, kind of classics and retro vehicles and stuff like that. And he's someone that I think it would be very, very interesting to speak to. So Ash has very kindly volunteered some of his time to me, and he let me film at his establishment as well as show me some other stuff as well. So I'm very grateful for that. But Ash, if you could just give us a quick introduction for yourself, just for the benefit of the viewers, please.
Yeah, okay, brother. Assalamu alaikum to you and the viewers. My name's Amjid Ali. I've been living in Nelson since 2006. So I run a company called Awesome Street Hotrods. The name obviously comes from my nickname Ash, what I'm known to the hot rod community and my friends by. So I set it up, building classic cars, hot rods, motorbikes, custom cars, anything one-off really.
Good. And I'm going to ask you to make one small adjustment to your mic.
Yeah, sure.
Because I've got the headphones on, I can pick it up. Can you put it slightly to the left? Just because, mashallah, you've got a beard, so it's rustling against it a bit.
Yeah, okay.
Perfect. So the first area and thing I want to ask you about is you obviously deal with a very, very specialist area in car vehicles. So you're not necessarily just your run-of-the-mill mechanic. You're dealing with heavy-duty, classical machinery. I'm trying to understand is, obviously I'm from an Asian background, you're from an Asian background, and I'm trying to understand, like, how did you go down that path? Because it's not something I've ever known anybody from our backgrounds to get into.
I believe I'm the only one in the whole of UK. When I started off, there is a lot of young Asian guys now that are buying the new muscle American cars, you know.
Yeah.
But back in the days, when I was very young, my uncle tells me when they used to buy toys for me, it will always be cars, and I would take the wheels off from one toy to another toy and mess around with them,
Yeah.
even at the age of 5, 6. I bought my first American vehicle at the age of 15. It was a Buick Skyhawk. I modified that, and then from there, obviously, school years, college years, I went into Mark 1 Escorts, Mark 2 Escorts, Capris. I've always gone for stuff that not a lot of apne, sort of do unique stuff,
Yeah.
you know. From there, basically, I started modifying cars. I was always into power rather than looks.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends were into looks, and with the looks, they'd modify your average exhaust or something, not upgrade the brakes or anything. But I was always into power.
Okay.
I wanted to put bigger engines into cars, and back then, obviously, finance wasn't as available to the teenagers as it is now.
Yep.
You were up against, you're coming from a working class family, you're up against guys with Porsches, Ferraris. So in my generation, we used to then go to the scrap yards, get engines out, put big engines in cars to make them go faster. So that's how I kind of got into it, with the Mark 1 Escorts and stuff being my first American vehicle at the age of 15.
So with the bit I'm trying to get is the technical aspect, because if you ask me, like, I have some technical know-how around cars, but I'm more of a hobby guy.
Yeah,
So
sure.
if you could show me a car, it's like, oh yeah, it's got this engine, certain axle stuff and combination stuff. But how did you actually go about learning the actual, the nuts and bolts and knowing how to put it all together? Because that takes a lot of effort, especially when you said you did like 15, 16 and you were doing it then.
Yeah. I've done it from a very young age. Like I said, I started off with obviously, as you do with your bicycles, spraying your bicycles at a very young age and then moving into the first American vehicle, into the Mark 1 Escorts. It was really when I got into the Mark 1 Escorts, everybody at that time would have a Evo Mexico or an RS 2000 or a Harrier. These cars were well known. So I would just take a basic Escort at that time and obviously try and put like a back in the days, you had the 2.8 injection cuppery,
Yeah,
you had
I
the
remember
3 litre cuppery and the Granadas. So I would then obviously fabricate my own engine mounts, gearbox mounts, to put that engine in to compete against these, RS 2000s and stuff. And that's how I really got into it. The other thing, like I said before, back in the days, finance wasn't that available. There wasn't as many engineering shops or stuff like that. So you had no choice but to self-teach yourself.
Got you.
And then
That makes
obviously
sense.
because of finance,
Yep.
you'd made stuff, and that's how I started doing it.
Actually, while we're talking about mounts, I keep getting told off like from when I used to do a little bit of tuning with cars back in the
Yeah,
day.
sure.
I say back in the day, obviously you should still be doing it now. It's a good hobby to be into.
Yeah.
But what do you think of polyurethane mounts? Yes or no?
I don't necessarily agree with them. I'm old school. Everything I do is either hammer and dolly, or it's the old school fashioned way.
Yeah.
I've always believed in building my cars where if you're gonna put something like a 5.7 litre engine in, I don't do my engine mounts to accommodate the 5.7 litre engine. I would do my mounts to accommodate like a 9.5 litre.
Yeah.
So if someone was to say we want to put a sort of 500 or 600 horsepower engine in, my mounts would be up to sort of like 2,000 horsepower, because when you're in that speed game, you always want to go faster and faster and bigger and bigger engine wise. So if they're beefed up in the first place and made in that manner,
Yeah.
then they're already there.
That's a good way to look at it, because one thing I did notice, and by the way, there will be footage of the workshop and some of the stuff he's worked on coming along the video, so you're not just going to be looking at our faces for this video. But one thing I did notice is there's a lot of emphasis on quality for you, so where possible you do as much fabrication and making your own as much as possible rather than off-the-shelf parts. And I think that kind of goes back to what you were saying before about when you started up, the resources were a lot more limited.
Very
Finances were limited. So you basically had to just, whatever you could get from a scrapper, make it work and stretch every bit of metal as far as it can go, basically.
right.
So one thing I wanted to also talk about then is, so we've got an idea of your background, and we know you're working on, obviously, cars and some quite interesting vehicles, but what's some of the highlights of your career so far, some of the vehicles that you really enjoyed and cherished?
I've cherished every one, to be fair, because when I build my vehicles, there is a lot of sort of the Western side of it, or the English guys, they'll build a vehicle and it's radical. You walk up to it and you know exactly what's being done to it. I don't like to build my vehicles like that. I like to build my vehicles where they're enhanced, and the smallest detail that will take you hours and hours and you may not even notice, And when they go to the showground, when they're parked next to a standard vehicle, you're hard pushed to tell which one is standard. So I like to kind of enhance things, smooth things, make things work that way, and have everything in promotion. That's how I like to do them.
So if someone brought you or offered you like a shell of a Mustang tomorrow, and you said, "All right, cool, I'll buy that," and then by the time it's done, you're not just like restoring it to standard, or you're gonna have
I'm
like
gonna
maybe
modify it.
improved engine or
I mean, I don't mind standard cars. They're brilliant. But you got to bear in mind, I'm working on cars that are 1920s, 1930s, 1940s. The only newest car I've had is a Toyota Supra, and only the Aerotop version. I only like the Aerotop. So with these cars, then you've got to put, your own, or some kind of a suspension of a car. You've got to put a bigger engine in it. You've got to either make your own chassis or box that chassis, put double cross K members in to perform and to handle.
And that Toyota that you mentioned, that's we'll be showing a picture of it, but that actually made it to like the performance car magazines and everywhere else, didn't it?
Yes, the Supra was an Aerotop twin turbo, 6-speed manual with one of our own body kits on there. Loads of music in there. There was things about 4 amplifiers in there. 24 speakers. There was 6 TVs in the back, 3 of which were motorized. They would come out. There was TVs in the drop-down screens, TV in the rear view mirror, 2 TVs in the dash. That vehicle became, for media, for Eclipse Audio. It actually became their demo car.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
And then I was lucky enough to have that vehicle featured in Japanese Performance magazine twice. It was in the magazine. It was on the cover the first time. Massive poster inside, fold-out poster, which the poster was shared with Hans RX-7 from Tokyo Drift.
Yeah, so just for context, the actual poster is reversible because they couldn't decide which one was the winner, and it was up against basically a car that had been in the Fast and Furious franchise. So that's
it was, yes. Yeah.
That's quite an achievement.
Yeah, that was one of the achievements. I've been lucky enough to have several others in magazines. I had my 30-year Oldsmobile on the cover of Street Machine magazine, and then I had a centerfold poster of that as well. And I think they gave me something like 5 or 6 pages, which I'm thankful to Street Machine and Dave. I've had a few in Custom Car magazine. I've had some in Retro Ford, some in Performance Ford. So I have had, a good run of the mill with the magazines. I was lucky enough to have worked with Zada. She's an artist. My Buick Riviera, that was used in her music video at the gala. Also, the same Buick was used by Cassie Lowry. He's a singer in Newbury Beach in Wales. The truck, my shop truck, has been in several photo shoots, several advertisements, and then my 30-year Oldsmobile was used by HMD and Abnormal Sleeps, 2 rappers, and that's in a music video as well, which most of them are on YouTube, the videos.
Yeah. We'll, I know I keep saying it, but we are going to overlay as much footage as possible because you've got loads of stuff. You even built motorbikes.
I did, yes. I'm not one for fast bikes. I don't like them. I admire them. Don't get me wrong. I admire speed. Like I said, I started off building cars to go fast. So speed is the first thing for me. There are some nice bikes, fast bikes. But back in the days, I went back home to visit my father. My father was a president of UBL, United Bank Limited.
Right.
And back in those days, I'm like 15. The only people to have a 200cc motorbike was the military police with the twin exhausts.
Wow.
My father at that time had a Suzuki with twin exhaust, and it was 200. And they only allowed it to my father because he was a government official. At that time, they wouldn't allow you. There was no roads, it was stones and stuff.
Yeah.
So when I went there, I would take this bike and go out on it. And I raced a couple of them military guys, so let's go, off the record, let's go. So when I got back, at that point, I got into bikes. I've had some R6s, R1s, some Ninjas. But I gave up on it. The reason why I gave up on it is 99% of the time, it's never the biker's fault. It's always somebody else's fault.
Yeah.
And with a couple of friends that passed away, I sort of gave it up then. I moved into chopper bikes. I built my chopper bike, which obviously won, a prize at Winter Gardens. So I mean, I do have the hankering to build another one.
Yeah.
But I've got a lot of stuff going on and stuff, and then, sometimes you just got to compromise. No matter how careful you are, it's always someone else. And one of the brothers local as well, which is sad. I went out on a ride with them as well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him Jannat, was Shaq.
Oh yeah.
I've got a photo of Shaq and us at Devil's Bridge because they used to go there regular. So they asked me, come there please, because you've got a chopper bike. There's nobody who's got that kind of a bike. But when you land there, don't take your helmet off. let them surround you, and everybody surrounded me, and then I took my helmet off, and they all realized it was an Asian guy, and I was the only Asian guy there, you know. So yeah, you know, when sort of he kind of passed away and other stuff, and most of his friends, I believe, gave up riding, and they've gone into 4x4s and mountain climbing and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I gave it up then. Uh, Another thing that I have a thrill for, and I don't think I'll ever get to do it, it's probably one of the things I'll never get to do, is fighter jets.
Ooh.
Yeah. I've got a thrill for fighter jets, especially when they fly low, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
So with all the hobbies and things you have going for you at the moment, in terms of your full-time day-to-day, you mainly work on like restoration and obviously a little bit of mechanic work, but what's in the pipeline for you now?
Basically, I've been working as an MOT tester previously. I did some car sales and everything, and now this year, you know, I'm old school. You know, if you're old school, you help anyone out, you know, and loyalty is most important, which you don't see nowadays. You know, I can proudly sit here and say I've made a lot of people very successful. I've never thought about myself, you know. But now, you know, obviously, I'm going to concentrate on Awesome Street Hotrods this year. Take it back to where it once was, you know, get some vehicles out, you know, do some more film work, some magazine work, you know, and then hopefully, inshallah, you know, I always ask, you know, to, you know, if anybody out there, anyone young wants to come in and then they can learn. I'm the type of guy, I'll teach you everything, you know, I'm not going to hide anything from you. I'll teach you all my trade, and it'd just be an honor and a privilege to pass this on to someone that can benefit from it, you know.
That's good. That's because the main thing is that you don't want the knowledge just to be kind of stuck with you, because you had to learn it the hard way.
I learned it the hard way, yeah. I mean, in my time, if you had a Commodore 64, you were very lucky. All you had was a bicycle and possibly a skateboard, you know.
Yeah.
And that's it, you know. So, but yeah, I mean, if I can get some youth into it, why not? You know, if it helps somebody out, I'm more than happy to do that.
That's good to hear. So, speaking of youth, there's going to be a couple of young guys, well, quite a few young guys are going to be watching this podcast and they're into their cars and stuff, and they might even be thinking of going into car-related business one day. So, you mentioned obviously the issue around like loyalty and stuff like that, so that's one aspect. But I was going to ask about, you know, the highs and lows and what you've learned from it and what you can pass on to them as advice, I guess.
Okay, so first of all, in my field, you know, I can only talk about myself. In my field, when I started this, there's, like I said to you, there's no Asians that do this, you know. And yes, you do suffer some racism, not to your face you won't, you know, but behind your back you definitely will, you know. And to be fair, you get that from both sides.
Yeah.
You know, it's, you know, I'm a fair person, you know, I've got to go in my grave. You'd get that from the English community, and you'd get that also from the Asian community.
Yeah.
Because now, with some films coming out and stuff, people know what a 67 Mustang is, they know what a Shelby is, they know what a GT is. You know, back in the days when, if you had a 1938 truck or something, you know, your Asian people would say you're a hippie, what's this? But, you know, so you get it from both sides. I'm not going to sit here and label it, you get it from both sides. But there's no pleasure in breaking barriers, you know. Although I can hold my own, I can stand up in a crowd and, you know, speak my mind, but I never did. I just let my work do the talking. And when my truck was slammed down in the middle of the showground, you know, and I had a crowd around it, I just, you know, nicely open my door, sit in there, get my drink and walk back out, you know. So as the years went by, obviously I became a familiar face in the hot rod scene. I started working with some of the big hot rod shops, and alhamdulillah now, you know, if I take my truck or my car and go and put it in the showground, they know whose it is, because the style is built, you know. I never copied anyone. A lot of hot rodders, what they intend to do, especially with trucks, is small block Chevy, even if it's a Ford, 350 turbo gearbox, steel wheels with whitewall, and everybody does the same thing. You know, everybody honestly does the same thing. If it's a 32, it's the same thing. I don't want to do the same thing. You either hate me or you like me, but my style is mine. So that's where I started to smooth the trucks out, you know, start doing the pro touring thing, you know, with big wide wheels in the back, deep dish rims, air ride suspension and stuff like that. And when people started doing that, I moved on and started doing something else. So I always kind of intend to send a trend rather than follow a trend. So I would say to the youngsters that believe in yourself, believe in the idea that you've got, you know. Never be a businessman, you know, and with all respect to good businessmen. There are some good and fair businessmen, but majority of the businessmen are shrewd and staunch. And they, you know, it's sad to say this, they don't give two hoots about anyone other than themselves. And they'll just use you and abuse you. And they'll lower themselves that much that if you're a good person at heart, they'll emotionally, you know, put stories to you that you feel sorry for them.
Yeah.
So yes, I have been in that situation, and I've listened to those stories, you know, and I've not thought, like I said, I've not thought about myself.
Yeah.
And in all of this, the sad thing is, I knew that what's going on. I knew what's going on, but in my head, it was love for your brother, what you love for yourself. That was the key thing in my head, you know. And if you're right in your heart, although someone will do that to you, Allah will always keep your boat sailing. He will always keep you. So you have to be true to yourself, you know. Then you can sit there with, you know, if it comes to an end, you can sit there with no guilt, you know. To me, in my time, I was a manager of 50 garages when I was 16. We was taught customer is king. I've always gave human race the utmost respect because they are the ummati of Rasulullah. So as long as you be you and don't let things carry you, you know, don't get upset over things. New businesses take time. You got to break barriers, you got to break hurdles. But as long as you are focused on there, and you have to have a role model. You have to have a role model. For me, my role model is, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him and give him the highest rank, is Imam Hussein. And the reason why I chose Imam Hussein was because the love that was drilled in me from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give him Jannat as well, was by Bir Shabir Hifz Abadi. And he talks about Karbala and he himself cries. When you watch that talk, it drills that love in you. Good. So every time when I hit a low in my life, I just looked at Imam Hussein and said he had nothing. He didn't have a glass of water. So that silenced me, you know, that silenced me. But then, you know, somehow miraculously, Allah's always made my way work for me. So always believe in yourself, be real, go for the idea what you want to go for. You're going to do it for you, you're not going to do it for anybody else. So you got to do what you like doing, you know. And that's what I would say to the youth.
Honestly, that's the perfect advice that I would want to get passed on. So, and that's a good way to round it off with the time that we have as well. So, as ever, I just want to say thank you again to Brother Ash.
No,
Amjid Ali is his proper name. I know I introduced him as Ash, but that's obviously what he's known as within the business community. And as ever, just keep subscribed. There'll be more episodes coming, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Peace out.